welcome back. Welcome back to round 2 of the 2015 North American World Championship Qualifier. Before we delve into round 2, let's do a quick recap of what happened in round 1. After the round was over, we investigated what happened at the end there. It was a little unclear about whether a game loss had been issued or it was simply time had run out in the round and we were unaware of it. Turns out time did run out. And the match was a draw as a result of it. Bess and Robinson had each won one duel, so they ended the first round with a 1-1 draw. At the moment where there was some confusion about what was going on, where players appeared to be counting cards to determine what had been done, and there was a fairly long pause on Robinson's first turn of the second duel. It turned out there was an appeal where they were questioning whether or not the effect of the Galaxy Soldier is an whether Galaxy Soldier Special Summon is an inherent summon or it uses the chain. So that was the issue there. That was properly resolved.
The answer, of course, is it does start a chain, and you can tell because there's a semicolon in the text.
So that is the answer to anyone wondering. We mentioned on the stream that you're able to use Maxi and Effect Veiler, which is what happened, so that can only be done if it does use the chain.
Now, on to this round's match, Ellen Thomas versus Marcelo Parisi. Now, of all of the matchups that I thought that we would ever see at this year's WCQ, this is last on the list, especially with both players already having one win under their belt. Marcelo Parisi is playing Noble Knights against Ellen Thomas's Gravekeepers, featuring Secret Village of the Spellcasters.
Ellen Thomas's deck is very much in the spirit of today's event because we have Marek Ishtar here, or the voice actor for Marek Ishtar at least, who, as viewers of the animated series know, is the Guardian of the Tombs. So he can identify fairly well with the Gravekeepers. And now Ellen Thomas is here using that deck. And hoping to take a victory over Marcelo Parisi and his Noble Knights.
Now, Thomas's deck is very geared towards just blanking as many of Necroz's cards as possible, making them impossible to play. So you've got Secret Village of the Spellcasters in the main deck. Royal Tribute can knock out the entirety of a Necroz player's hand. And Hidden Temples of Necro Valley, if played while you have Necro Valley and a Gravekeeper, stops all non-Gravekeeper special summons.
Right. And if that weren't enough, she's also using Thunder King Ryo to further stop searching for ritual spell cards or Necro's monsters, and Necro Valley, of course, which prevents cards from being banished from the grave. Thomas
starts with Gravekeeper's Commandant, discarding that to the graveyard to go search for Necro Valley, the all-important field spell. Necro Valley gives all Gravekeepers 500 attack and defense, and also negates the effect of any card that tries to move a card other than itself from the graveyard, and prevents things in the graveyard from being banished. And that spell card that you see there is Hidden Temples of Necro Valley, preventing special summons.
She's off to a good start. Players can't special summon monsters now. I didn't catch what her second back row is.
It's a Dimensional Prison.
Right, it's Dimensional Prison. So she does have a strong field, but it does appear to be fairly vulnerable because if either the Necro Valley or the Gravekeeper's Descendant leaves the field, that Hidden Temples of Necro Valley will go down with it. So we'll see momentarily whether she can maintain this powerful position she's currently in.
This is interesting. The Dro is the normal summon for Marcelo Parisi, and it looks like he's got a pair of Forbidden Lances. Now, hang on. We've got, looks like the effect of, let's go and bring up Hidden Temples of Necro Valley for a moment. As based on my previous reading, this shouldn't be possible. Neither player can special summon except Gravekeeper's monsters. So you can't actually activate the effect of Noble Knight Madro right now. Noble Arms Excalibur prevents your Noble Knight from being targeted by your opponent's card effects, which will help because Dimensional Prison, strange as it seems, actually does target.
Okay, it looks like they've figured out they can't special summon here.
Yes, it took a little longer than I would expect, considering that she played that card specifically to stop things like this from happening.
Yeah, so suddenly Parisi's actually looking pretty good if the Dimensional Prism can't stop him.
Dimensional Prism can't stop him, and he goes to the battle phase, attacks Descendant, and activates the Forbidden Lance. Now that is twofold. The Lance not only will give a minus 800 to the attack points of Descendant, as per its own effect, it'll also block the boost from Necro Valley. So essentially it'll drop to 1500, and then 800 more to 700.
Yes.
Which flips the Dimensional Prison, which does not work. Can't be targeted. It'll go back face down.
Sorry, I guess just explain like what it does.
There's no legal activation there.
Yep.
Right.
So a pair of minor procedural errors start us off.
Nothing that can't be repaired.
Yep.
And nothing that wasn't repaired. But that's it. The Descendants go into the graveyard with the Gravekeeper's monster off of the field. The Hidden Temples of Necro Valley goes down with it.
That's a heavy blow.
That was a tremendous blow.
And it doesn't stop Madro from activating its effect anymore.
Yeah. It was unfortunate for Thomas because she probably didn't know what Parisi was running. Maybe she did. If he had been running a Necros deck, that opening would have been outstanding.
Absolutely devastating.
Can't use the graveyard, can't special summon monsters, 2,000 attack monster on the field. That would have been very difficult to overcome.
Now Madro, when alone and equipped, becomes a level 5 Dark Monster with the effect to summon another Noble Knight from the deck and then destroy a Noble Arms card on the field. He's taken Boars in this case. Boars is similar. Light most of the time, but Dark level 5 when he's equipped with the Noble Arms. And in this case, he's equipped with Guinevere, who is a monster that can be equipped from the hand or graveyard to a Noble Knight. And her effect depends on what attribute that Noble Knight is. Boars is a dark monster, unlocks Guinevere's assassination ability, lets her destroy herself and the opposing monster whenever that knight would get into battle. And since it's a card that moves itself out of the graveyard, it can still be brought back from the graveyard while Necro Valley's on the field. Boars himself, while equipped, lets you reveal 3 Noble Knight, or rather 3 Noble Arms cards from your deck, and your opponent randomly selects one, and that's put into your hand, and the remaining 2 go to the graveyard. So basically what you're doing with Noble Knights a lot of the time is trying to load up your graveyard with a lot of different Noble Arms cards, and then bring them all back with one of the Noble Knight Xyz monsters, which can bring 3 different Noble Arms back when they're Xyz summons. So we're in main phase 2 now. Noble Arms Caliburn is equipped to Madro. Caliburn gives your monster plus 500 attack and also lets you gain 500 life points each time it's once per turn, each time it's on the field. I say each time it's on the field because most of the Noble Arms have an ability to bring themselves back from the graveyard if they're destroyed. So doing so would reset that once per turn on Caliburn. So there you've got 2 level 5 monsters, and Parisi needs to be careful about that Necro Valley.
Yes. Unfortunately for Thomas, he knows that her face-down card is a Dimensional Prison, so I don't expect we'll see he walks into that in a way that devastates him.
He's got, how many copies of Excalibur? 3 full copies of Excalibur. So he could practically, he could give himself a 2/3 shot at one. He goes ahead and activates the Boar's effect, and he gets Noble Arms of Destiny that prevents destruction by things.
It's like he keeps pulling further ahead here.
Yeah, he gets Gallatin. Gallatin's plus 1,000 attack, but loses 200 during each standby phase, I believe, each of your standby phases. He doesn't get any of the Excaliburns. It could be that his plan here, knowing that the face down is Dimensional Prison, is to try to stop his opponent. He would just be trying to stop his opponent from resolving a Gravekeeper Spy or anything like that. Noble Knight Bedwear, that's from the box set, one of the new cards in the box set. When you normal summon or special summon it, can send a Noble Arms card to the graveyard, so we see the Excalibur there.
Looks like almost all of these cards he's played are from that box set.
Yeah, these are the Platinum Rare technology cards.
Cool looking cards.
I don't know that camera necessarily does them justice. Because I remember we tried to photograph them
Yeah.
for a strategy site piece back when it first came out, and it took us the better part of the day to get the lighting right in such a way that the cards would appear on film the way that they actually do when you look at them.
They look a lot better in person.
Now, the Noble Arms bring themselves out of the graveyard, so those won't be stopped by Necro Valley. But what happened here is Bedware uses other ability, which lets you change the target of a Noble Arms card that's already on the field. So in this case, he's moved Caliburn from Madro to Bedware. That makes it so that Madro is no longer level 5 Dark Monster. He's a light level 4 monster again, and that means he can be used as Xyz material for Artorigus, King of the Noble Knights, the rank 4 monster. And that is exactly what the Doctor ordered. So the trick here is that he doesn't need to use Artorigus' effect to equip 3 Noble Arms cards from the graveyard. Because he used Bedware to shift it over, he still has that once per turn bringing it back out of the graveyard effect. Not negated by Necro Valley, it's bringing itself back. And that leaves him with 2 Noble Arms cards on the field, which will let him destroy both
It makes sense. Yeah.
of his opponent's spell and trap cards. So both the Prison and the Necro Valley will go. And Artorigus is at 2,500 attack.
We'll make short work of that Gravekeeper spot.
In addition, Boars is both at 2,000 attack and able to just take out whatever it attacks right away.
This is going downhill pretty quickly for Thomas.
What's happening now is that the first Excalibur that was sent to the graveyard, not the second, is being banished as essentially a rank-up magic to be used on, or a rank-down magic. It lets you swap out one of the Noble Knight Xyz monsters for the other one. So rank 4 King becomes rank 5 King, Sacred Noble Knight of King Artorigus. And now that one can use its ability to bring back 3 Noble Arms cards from the graveyard. So it's got Excalibur, protecting it from being targeted by card effects. Destiny, which lets you not get destroyed by anything once per turn. And Caliburn, which is the plus 500 attack, and lets you gain life points. And the King's ability here is to detach material to destroy a monster on the field.
That's devastating.
So much of the Noble Knight strategy involves getting to those Noble Arm cards.
Yeah.
People debate endlessly how many cards, how many different Noble Arms you should play to make sure that you have one in your starting hand, because without it, you're kind of hosed.
Looks like he's using the Artorigus' effect to destroy the spy. And now he has a tremendous field with a nearly invincible Xyz monster.
You got 4,500 points of attack on the board. And interestingly enough, he actually does run a few traps. Most Noble Knight players, I observe, either don't run any traps or run like one copy of Solemn Scolding to go with all the life points that they're gaining from Caliburn. At this point, he's actually got actual monster effect negation with Breakthrough Skill. Some prevention in the form of Emptiness, Vanity's Emptiness, and a Torrential Tribute. Pot of Duality comes down for Ellen Thomas, and she gets her pick of 3 cards that don't super help.
I don't think there is anything that helps here.
Yeah, she's going to take the Assailant and see if she can't do some attack position finagling with it. But in the end, I don't think it super helps.
Yeah, I mean, she's down to 1 card against the 7 cards on Parisi's field, plus the pair of cards in his hand. Then she drew 1 more.
Yeah, she's got Necro Valley and the Assailant now, but only 2,300 life points. One of those monsters can't be targeted with the Assailant's ability, and the other will be taken out by Guinevere if they try.
Right.
What is Boris' current situation right now?
Is 2,000.
Okay.
Quick check of Boris' current status. He is a 2,000 attack, level 5 Dark Monster. He is equipped with Guinevere. And Guinevere's current effect is to destroy herself and an enemy monster at the start of the damage step. That's even before monsters flip face up. Actually, it's at the start of
That's cool.
the damage step.
Assailant?
Yeah.
Attack orders?
3,000.
And effect? Switch it.
Queen. Let's start with the
So Assailant is summoned with Necro Valley. The attack is declared to try to switch it, and Parisi is now explaining
But it's at
what Qualifier is going to do here.
So it's just exactly what you just mentioned.
Salem's taken out. Boars is back to being a plain old level 4 light warrior monster.
No.
But Thomas does not have anywhere near enough life points to survive this next turn.
It's like direct attacks from Boars and Sacred Noble Knight of King Artorgus are just going to finish her off.
Yep, and that's what happens here. And we'll be heading on into game 2. Now, the crazy thing is, like, I'm looking over here at Ellen Thomas's side deck, and it's almost like she knew this was going to happen.
She has a couple good cards
In particular,
for this matchup.
and we can see this at the table right now. She's eyeing some spell-shattering arrows, which is generally not the card that people use when they want to destroy a lot of face-up spell and trap cards. Most people pick Fairy Wind, as it can take out traps as
Right.
well as spells, even though the damage isn't as great, and it also hits yourself. But in this case, Spell-Shattering Arrow is exactly the sort of card you want, because every card is going to be a spell, and you can rack up a lot of damage really quickly.
Yes. So Thomas's main deck, as we mentioned before, is very geared toward beating Necros decks.
Yes.
With the inclusion of Hidden Temples of Necro Valley, Secret Village of Spellcasters, and stuff like that, Thunder King Ryo. When you build your deck in that way, the side deck becomes even more important, because when you don't play against those decks that you are anticipating playing against, you want to be able to adjust your deck between duels so that you can optimize your chance of winning in games 2 and 3. We're likely to see that here as Thomas sides out quite a few cards.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a bigger focus on Secret Village of the Spellcasters. Because like I was mentioning before, if you don't draw any Noble Arms, you're hosed. But if you draw a bunch of Noble Arms and you can't play them because of Secret Village of the Spellcasters, you're also hosed.
Yes, that's true. Do you think we're still going to see Hidden Temples of Necro Valley after how it fared in Duel 1?
I think those are getting swapped for more copies of Secret Village of the Spellcasters.
I agree. I think it's too hard to keep a Gravekeeper's monster and the Necro Valley on the field in this particular matchup where many of the Noble Knights have more than 1,500 attack points. And
Especially
can
when
be
there are monster
boosted.
removal effects.
That too.
So, for example, Qualifier is, she's not actually the spell. When you equip her, you're activating a monster effect. So that gets around Secret Village of the Spellcasters, and it turns a lot of Parisi's monsters into just monster-destroying threats that can take out your face-up spellcaster and then lock you out of your own spell cards.
Yes. What do you think of Mirror Force here? There's Mirror Force in her side deck as well.
Mirror Force is shockingly not useful. Now, if it's Mirror Force in combination with Secret Village, and your opponent can't put a Noble Arms of Destiny on their monster, then it could be very helpful. It's also worth noting that the light effect of Qualifier destroys herself instead of the monster she's equipped to when it would be destroyed by a card effect. So there are multiple layers of protection against things like Mirror Force. It's Prison that's the one you have to watch out for. The entire Noble Knight strategy is like you're trying to create this invincible army that doesn't care what your opponent throws at you. And sometimes that takes the form of one of the big kings with a bunch of equips on it, but more often it's 2 or 3 smaller knights with 1 or 2 equips on each of them.
So I was able to take some.
We saw a little both in Duel 1 for
Yep.
Parisi.
We have like stacks and stacks of them. I don't understand. Like,
It's like pitching,
I don't know if we brought them, even I don't really like.
where you climb the ladder, you throw low, then middle, then high,
This was
to try to set the batter up to strike out. It's a lot like that. You'll start either with 1 or 2 Noble Knights in the game, in the first game, and then bring out the king to win. But in the second game, you go for the king straight away, and then if they get past that, which they probably won't because they think you're going to play the other way, then you clear them out.
Your baseball references are lost on me, but the rest of it made sense.
You live in New York, dude. Come on.
Yeah, but that wasn't written.
In any case, Parisi also has cards in his side deck that we can certainly expect to be put in here. Parisi has 2 copies of Mystical Space Typhoon, which seem like they would be fairly ideal against a deck focused on a
anything with
field
field
spell
spells.
card, so for destroying Necro Valley. It's got Shadow Imprisoning Mirror. I don't know if I really like that card against Gravekeepers, though.
It's okay against them, but the thing you have to watch out for is that it's also okay against you.
Yeah.
Because your monsters turn dark. So I don't know if it's super worth that risk.
He has a Noble Arms in his side deck as well.
Oh yeah, what do we got over there?
I'm not even going to try to pronounce
Oh,
it.
Arfiduder.
So
That's Lonzelin's blade. It destroys face down cards, monsters or spells and traps, and drops your monster's attack by 500. It also has the ability to come back from the graveyard on its own. And we see Merlin to start out. He's one of the new cards in that box set. He acts, well, his first effect is like a Lone Fire Blossom for Noble Knights. And his second effect lets you banish him from the graveyard to Synchro Summon or Xyz Summon a Noble Knight monster from your extra deck as a quick effect. Probably not going to see that effect used in this duel. It's activated, and Vanity's Emptiness is flipped face up.
Okay.
That'll stop all the special summons. And we've already used up normal summon for the turn. That'll do it. And we see Thomas has picked up Royal Tribute. Flips up Gravekeeper Spy. Forgot about Grown Vanity's Emptiness there.
backfired.
But she still has the Gravekeeper's Descendant. Get some use out of that.
Yeah, I completely did this differently.
I think what I would have done is summon the Descendant first and then drop Royal Tribute.
Discard all your monsters.
It would discard all monsters from both players' hands, and it will. But in this case, the number is 0, so everything is just as it was before.
So that's really good for Parisi. He just got Ellen Thomas to use her Royal Tribute and get nothing out of it.
Yeah, lost a Spy, lost a Royal Tribute,
Yeah.
lost Vanity's Emptiness.
Lost the Vanity's
while she was
Emptiness
at
too.
it.
And we know that Parisi has his own Vanity's Emptiness face down, so seeing hers go to the graveyard is just great for him. Yeah, the minor error in sequencing there. Had she Royal Tributed first, Vanity's Emptiness would have gone to the grave, and she'd be able to special summon a monster from her deck with Gravekeeper Spy.
I even like this kind.
I think it's just a case of being caught off guard
Yeah,
by the last strategy that you ever expected to see at the event.
could be that. Could be nervous on camera.
It's also possible. Some players work well on camera than others. Reinforcement of the Army drops for Parisi. Excellent card to have in this situation. And Dro is the pick there. And he's got plenty of Noble Arms, as his opponent just saw.
Certainly does.
I would not be shocked if things get a little crazy. Noble Arms of Destiny is equipped in Dro. And the effect is activated. And we took a look at Noble Knight Brothers there for a moment. I think he's considering whether or not he wants to go for that rank 4 Artora display again.
Seems like it would be pretty good, right?
It'd be pretty good, but there's the matter of needing to have all the Noble Arms. Destiny is destroyed, comes back on boars.
The way that just works around Necro Valley is too perfect in this matchup.
Yes, there's a lot of stuff that just really works in a Noble Knight player's advantage
Yeah.
in this particular matchup. For example, there's a 2/3 chance that we will see Gwynethar manage to come back without being interrupted by Necro Valley. And we can see he did side in the Arfiduder there. That's specifically for destroying lots of face-down cards. Perfect for this matchup, not so perfect for anything else. Oh,
There it is.
and he hit the 1 in 3 chance that Gwynethar would be added to his hand. So if either of the other two gets picked, you essentially get 2 Noble Knight or 2 Noble Arms cards for the price of none, instead of 1 in this case. So that worked out well for Ellen Thomas.
I don't think it's going to be enough. It's pretty far behind again.
Excalibur comes down. That'll protect the Dro from the dreaded Dimensional Prism once again. And it is joined by Guinevere. Watch out, Mr. Parisi. You don't have any spell and trap zones left. Draw attacks. Guinevere destroys the Descendant.
Yeah, I know. I just wanted to make sure.
And the reason that you do that is to make sure that Madro stays on the field. You definitely don't want to drop your Madro equipped with Excalibur into the graveyard when you definitely don't have to.
So Thomas draws another Necro Valley. She can't do anything with that right now. She already has a Necro Valley in play.
The Spy goes to defense. 2,500 defense thanks to Necro Valley, but no amount of defense will stop Guinevere from doing her work. Boris starts things up again on Parisi's turn. This time we've got Gallatin, Caliburn. Looks like he is loading up on attack points this time around. He already has a Destiny, and you can only control one of each of the basic noble arms. So he passes on Destiny and gets another Excalibur. And if memory serves me correctly, Excalibur is the one that you can control multiples of.
Yeah, I was like, doing with the.
Sorry, big words.
I heard bandit. I'm like, me too.
A bandit. This sucks.
Yes, indeed it is. It's just the case of you can only use the effect to rank up once per turn. All right, with the selection made, Guinevere is going to come back.
That's based off of her.
Yeah.
And the trick here is that you want to make sure that Guinevere is on the monster protected by Excalibur. Most important thing is getting rid of the monster. If Boris is lost to Dimensional Prism, then c'est la vie. You can just get another one out with Madro.
Yep.
In this case, though, Boris is safe. And he gets in there for 1,700 damage.
Thomas draws Pot of Duality. None of those are helpful. He reveals Terraforming, which is completely useless because he gets another Necro Valley. Imperial Tombs of Necro Valley, and Mystical Space Typhoon. Neither of those will help to alleviate the situation where she's facing down two monsters that are threatening direct attacks.
All right, well,
Yeah, I pulled your.
she gets the Terraforming and then flips the face down this Space Typhoon to destroy Excalibur.
That's something I could have did like forever.
Sequencing seems a little off there. I didn't know. Like, it looked like she was revealing and then using Mystical Space Typhoon, but that's not the case. Terraforming was the choice. Then Space Typhoon was flipped. And he activates Terraforming, which can get a Secret Village of the Spellcasters. Not that it particularly helps when you have no Spellcaster.
I forgot you can actually get that, but you're right. It doesn't do anything without a Spellcaster on the field, so.
It could just be a case of, well, here's what I was trying to do. I should at least show the namesake of my deck.
This is my deck, what my deck is supposed to do.
Yeah. I definitely have that feeling a lot.
Yeah.
When I build something that doesn't quite work out the way I want it to.
I'm going to get as many pieces of what I'm trying to do out as I can, even though it falls apart when they're not all there together.
She could theoretically... oh, and we see that Parisi just picked up Kaiser Coliseum. And that goes back to what my baseball analogy that you didn't understand. You start game one with the multiple monsters and consolidate it into one. Then when you side in Kaiser Coliseum, you start with the one monster and drop Kaiser Coliseum to block your opponent out of the game.
I see. So he shifted his strategy a little bit between duels 1 and 2.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, I mean, this is really tough for Thomas also because if she does play the Secret Village of the Spellcasters, she'll lose her Necro Valley, right?
Correct.
She needs that attack point boost to even get over Parisi's monsters.
That's the thing that really interests me in the construction of this deck is you're making a deck that essentially relies on two different field spells. And they aren't exactly, it's not a situation where it's terraforming and field spell, you can consider both to be a copy of that field spell because they're two different things. So it's like having 6 copies of 2 different field spells, but it's still 2 different field spells.
Right. So it's kind of curious.
Not any other card.
I definitely think it's an interesting choice, and I think it works in the current advanced format against the most popular decks because of the fact that you don't need to lock down the graveyard against a Necros deck if they can't play spell cards, and you don't need the 500 attack point boost if they can't play spell cards. Or, if you can lock down the graveyard against other decks, maybe it's okay if they activate spell cards.
I'm just going to go ahead and play that Secret Village.
But the problem here, as we can all see, is...
Yeah, now she can't play any other spell cards.
Yeah, she can't play spell cards, and Parisi's not using a Necros deck. He's using a Noble Knight deck. So the standard strategy that she was anticipating using against the top decks is just not going to work here.
Now, here's the thing. If she had that village instead of the Necro Valley at the start of the game, we'd be seeing a completely different match right now.
That is true.
None of these spells could be activated.
That is true. He would... Yeah, he wouldn't be nearly in the position he's in right now. But now that they've already been placed on the table, I don't know how much that Secret Village is going to help. And he can still play spell cards right now because that lone spellcaster is face down. So it doesn't even count.
Okay, just asking.
And what he really needs is a monster to just put this one to bed right now.
Yeah.
And get out of the round with a win. And he does have a monster.
Looks like he has Night Drop. Right?
Yep, he's got another one of them, and he's already got the... Oh, he's going to go and see something. Oh, that's another way to do it. I forgot that both of them are level 5 at the moment. And that'll take care of all of his problems. This also isn't the activation of a spell card. It's just using the effect of the spell. So even with a spellcaster, Village wouldn't stop this.
Yeah.
Caliburn for 2,500 attack, Destiny for destruction prevention, Excaliburn for targeting protection, and the effect of Sacred Noble Knight of King Artorigus to take out the spy. It's not enough damage in this case, though. It's only 2,500. But Thomas has had enough anyways, and decides to pack things up and try again next round.
Yeah, so that was definitely not the matchup she was hoping for. Did not go well for the Gravekeeper's deck.
That was not a match that anybody was expecting, really.
Certainly worked out for Marcelo Parisi, who was able to just dominate a deck that was otherwise teched out to try to beat the most popular decks in the format. And that's the advantage you get when you run a unique deck like Parisi did here.
Oh, and Ellen Thomas was trying to get that advantage, too.
That's true, but that's also the risk you run.
And it's generally the first 3 rounds where things like that come up. So Thomas more than likely played against the Necros deck first round, clobbered them.
Seems likely.
Comes here and runs into somebody else trying to do the exact same thing as her.
And it's an interesting matchup because it becomes... It's 2 decks face off against each other, both of them designed for a specific purpose to beat a different deck, and now suddenly their strengths and weaknesses just clash against one another, and you get an interesting matchup like we saw here, where Parisi's Noble Arm spell cards would just come back from the graveyard under Necro Valley, and he was largely unaffected by the Necro Valley.
So we will keep track of Marcelo Parisi for the rest of the day, but for now he takes a 2-0 win over Ellen Thomas in round 2. Stay tuned because we've got more of the brand new Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5 series for you. See you next round.